So tell us more about that, this blueprint that you've come up with, this framework that really addresses culture in the frame of values, process, behaviors, and what that looks like and how that can really be put into practice.
In 2018, after I did a lot of reflection, post WeWork, I wrote an article for HBR, Why Great Employees Leave Great Cultures, and framed culture as three things. It's really more than values. It's behaviors, processes, and practices. And part of that whole article and everything that I wrote up to that, I realized that, part of the issue was we were again not connecting all of the pieces of our organization. It wasn't what we were doing, it was actually what we weren't doing. We weren't connecting the behaviors to the processes. We weren't connecting, kind of our practices around meeting and communicating to also what we value and the behaviors. We weren't connecting culture to strategy. So I had this kind of aha moment and wrote this article that resonated with a lot of people. I got a lot of feedback, a lot of validation that this was something that was really struck a chord with them in terms of how they could use culture. So just stepping back, I think when people think about culture, they think of values and stop there. And I think that it's great. It provides something, but it really doesn't give us an opportunity to define what we're really looking for with our employees. And I think Netflix inspired me in that culture deck because they didn't stop at values. They really got specific. I think they now have I lost count, but I think it's 48 behaviors. It's a lot. But instead of just saying communication is a value, they got very specific on, we communicate clearly. We ask questions. And then they started to embed that into all of their people processes. And so I think that's another key step is once you define those behaviors, you have to then find ways to integrate and reinforce them. So integrating them into how you hire, how you onboard, how you manage your talent, and even how you offboard. I think that's really important. And then the practices piece is all about, things that we do every day. So our meetings, our communication, how we recognize people, how we learn, how do we make sure that, even in those opportunities, we're exemplifying those values and behaviors that we said are important.
And you said you did speak to a lot of people, a lot of leaders while you were researching this book, writing this book. What else, as you were speaking to people and writing, resonated with you in some of the stories that were told to you from these leaders as it relates to culture and how culture was created intentionally at other companies? You gave Netflix as one of the examples. Mm-hmm. Any other examples you can provide on how it was done well?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the key points that I make in the book is that, again, culture is not this static change initiative. I think that's the mistake a lot of leaders make as well, is that it's this one and done thing that I'll do in the beginning of a company and, we'll just have them live throughout the course of, until the company is no longer around. Versus, I think culture is something that we should actively be looking at all the time, just like we're looking at strategy. So the companies that, I talked to Pixar, I talked to Intuit, I talked to small startups as well, who were kind of designing, their values and behaviors right at the start. And I think, I even talk about my own experience at Adobe and Twitter, and Adobe is a great example because, the time that I was there, we evolved our values and behaviors 3 times. So we had values from when the founders were there. Bruce Chizen was the CEO post the founders, which is, a big change point in a company. And then we iterated on those again to have them be more specific and have behavioral statements when we were looking at moving more into software as a service and getting bigger and bigger as a company. So there were 3 distinct times as that company was going from 3,000 employees to almost 11,000 when I left that we continued to review, are these still values that exemplify both who we are today and who we want to become? And then getting really clear on what those would look like as behaviors every day. So there's stories in there about, companies like that, larger companies who continue to renew and look at their behaviors. And then there's stories of startups who are just starting to, again, design them newly.